Hello everyone, I'm Brian, and today I'm going to show you how I made a goofy little sculpture with some polymer clay and 3D printed objects. This video is a story time that's based on a very awkward experience I had a couple of weeks ago when I was mailing out holiday cards to my family and friends. Before I get to that, I just want to show that I'm starting off with painting the base for my sculpture. It's a recycled plastic raft from an old 3D print that I put hot glue around the edges and the underside to stabilize it. And then I modeled a cluster mailbox in CAD software and then printed it out with my 3D printer. The cluster mailbox plays an important role in the story, and I'm not going to go into too much detail on what these are, but basically they're a bunch of individual mailboxes that are in one big unit that the post office or the postal carriers use to deliver everyone's mail in one spot instead of having to go to like a single mailbox at every residence in the area. So when I was mailing my envelopes to my family and friends, I put them in my mailbox and then I left for work. But then I realized that I had forgotten to mail one of the envelopes. I was going to drop off the envelope at the post office, but as I was driving down the road, I saw a bunch of these cluster mailbox units off to the side, so I figured I'd pull over and drop the envelope in one of these. I got out of my car, put the envelope in the outgoing mail slot in one of the cluster towers, but as I was getting back into my car, I heard someone yelling at me from across the street. Apparently, a lady who lived right across the street from these mailbox units was upset that I had put an envelope in there, and she was saying that since I didn't live here, I couldn't use this mailbox. This lady was very agitated, and I didn't want to upset her. I told her I did live in the area, but not on this particular street, and then she proceeded to yell at me some more, saying that only residents can use these mailboxes. There were a lot of mailboxes in this spot, so unless this lady happened to know everyone in the whole neighborhood, I don't know how she picked me out and knew that I didn't live in the immediate vicinity. I kind of regret saying this next part, but I just asked her, it's like, well, it's just one envelope, what's the big deal? The lady didn't take that very well, and she started screaming at me, saying, it's my mailbox, it's mine, you can't use it, it's mine. I didn't want to prolong this argument, so I just got in my car and drove away. So if I had put this envelope in this lady's personal mailbox, that might have been one thing, but these cluster boxes are owned and operated by the United States Postal Service, so just dropping an envelope in there shouldn't have been a big deal. I know some of these cluster mailboxes are privately owned, but in this case that didn't apply because there is a big United States Postal Service logo and USPS on the side of the mailbox. A few days later, I happened to be at my local post office, and I asked one of the employees about using these cluster boxes if I didn't live in a specific neighborhood, and I was just kind of wondering what the rules were when mailing something and putting it in the outgoing slot. The employee said the post office doesn't care who puts mail in the outgoing slot as long as it has the correct postage on it and as long as the mailbox isn't privately owned. Otherwise, yeah, anyone can drop off a letter or a small package in the outgoing slots for the cluster boxes. It's not a big deal. I don't know why that lady was so upset, but I'm going to avoid those mailboxes from now on. And that's the story. So you've been watching me sculpt this weird green blob out of polymer clay, and I'm just using it as a stand-in for the Grouchy Lady who was yelling at me. I've used polymer clay a couple of times in the past, but not recently, and this particular pack of clay, well, I got a couple of packs of clay at my local hobby store. They were on discount because someone had ripped open the package and taken a bunch of the clay pieces out. This was a really cheap set now, so I bought it and took it home to use for my project. I don't have any sculpting tools other than just a few popsicle sticks and my paintbrushes, so that's what I was using to roll my clay into this blobby shape that I have. I glued my 3D printed cluster mailbox to the base, and I used tacky glue instead of hot glue because hot glue would have warped the plastic of the raft, and that might have made it uneven. So tacky glue would just hold everything firm and in place, and it did the job. I put some more glue around the edges, and then after that I put some model railroad ballast over the glue. The ballast is just tiny little rocks, but this particular handful of ballast I'm using, the rocks are a little bit large, so I ended up switching to an even finer ballast, which was practically sand, and I used that to fill in all the gaps where the glue was exposed. Model railroad ballast is really cheap, and I use it in a lot of my projects. I baked my polymer clay blob in an oven following the manufacturer's instructions, and when I pulled it out, it was still kind of rubbery, but after I let it cool down completely, it firmed up and it didn't wiggle around anymore. Now we're getting to the part where I turn this blob into an actual creature. I'm adding more tacky glue into the mouth of this creature to add some teeth. Instead of sculpting teeth out of clay, I took the ends off a bunch of toothpicks and I stuck them in the tacky glue to make what looks like really sharp, pointy fangs. I tried this technique in another project, but it didn't turn out very well. I didn't have any particular design in mind for this little creature I was sculpting, and I was just kind of making it up as I was going along, so it doesn't really resemble anything specific. So after I stuck the teeth in with the tacky glue, I rolled up a couple little balls to use for the eyes on the creature. I was going to bake them in an oven to solidify them, but I got really lazy at this point, so I just rolled them and stuck them on the top of the creature and then glued them down with tacky glue, and that would be sufficient. Some of the green pigment from the creature's body had rubbed off on my gloves, and it's hard to see in the video, but the green got onto this other polymer clay blobs I was using for the eyes. That wasn't going to be a problem because I was just going to use white acrylic paint to paint the eyes. I'm going to skip through most of the painting process of the eyes because, as you can see, I kept holding the creature out of frame and you can't really see what I'm doing. I only used one coat of acrylic paint for this, which again was sufficient for what I needed. I used red paint to put little dabs on the tips of the teeth to make it look a little bit scarier. I don't know, this is just a silly little creature here. Didn't really use a whole lot of paint on this part, but I also used red to make little dots on the eyes. For the final touch, I used a little bit of red paint to paint a tongue on the inside of the creature's mouth. I thought my creature could use just a little more detail, so I picked a sort of turquoise blue paint and started dabbing some dots on the creature's body. As I was adding the dots, something told me that my creature looked really familiar, and I couldn't think of it at first, but the longer I looked at it, I eventually came to the realization that this looks like a very weird, nasty looking Digimon character. That was purely coincidental, but I thought that was a little funny. And that wraps up the project. The little creature looks really goofy, but I'm happy with the way it turned out, and I look forward to making more things with polymer clay in the future. Thanks so much for watching my video. This is my first video of 2026, and stay tuned for more crafty projects from me in the future.